Hello friends, we have already seen the process of initiating the reconciliation process and completing the same. Post the reconciliation process, as I had mentioned in my previous video, we are returned with some exception status and some positive status as reconciled. For this account in concern, we do not have any reconciled transactions, but there are some unreconciled transactions. What are they? So primary areas of exceptions are missing in the source system transactions not reported by counterparty and data mismatch. To be able to see each one of them, we can apply the filters and the system will show the list of all such transactions grouped together. So the first one we'll talk about is missing in the source system. These are the transactions which do not form part of the purchase register uploaded by the user but are part of the GSTR2A, which is the vendor's data downloaded from GSTN. If you are initiating the reconciliation process without uploading your purchase register, all the transactions would be stamped as missing in the source system, as the application would not know what transactions are recorded in your internal purchase register and what are not. So these are the transactions which the user mandatorily needs to act upon. The multiple possible options are: first is user can accept these transactions. If the user accepts the transaction, it means that this transaction is included in the internal purchase register of the user as well, and it will be reported as accepted transaction to GSTN. And when the user initiates the save of GSTR2, this invoice will be included as part of the GSTR2. If the user rejects this transaction, it means that the user do not accept that this invoice belongs to his purchase register, and it will be reported the same to the GSTN. And when the GSTR2 is reported, this particular invoice will be excluded from the GSTR2 of the user. The third option is pending. This is putting on hold for any transaction. If the user puts on hold any invoice which is missing in the source system, it will form part of his GSTR2A in the next month. But for this month, it will not be included in GSTR2. The next exception is not reported by counterparty. This is only available when the user uploads his purchase register first and then initiates the reconciliation process. These are the transactions which are part of the internal purchase register uploaded by the user but are not found to be anywhere in GSTR2A downloaded from GSTN. It might mean that your vendor has not reported for this particular invoice. Now, what is it that the user can do with such transactions? The options are available for this category as well. For not reported by counterparty, if the user accepts this transactions, it means that he still wants to go ahead and report it in his GSTR2. So if you stamp the transaction as accepted, this transaction will be included in your GSTR2 irrespective of the fact whether the vendor has filed for it or not. If the user rejects this transaction will not be included in your GSTR2 and will not be reported to GSTN in the concerned return period. Third major category is the data mismatch. So these are the transactions which are part of your vendor's data, which is GSTR2A, and also your internal register. But they are setting in exceptions because there is some difference between the amount reported by both the parties. So where the difference is, we can see here that this is the invoice reported by the user as part of his internal purchase register, and this is the invoice which is coming as part of GSTR2A. So as we can see here that there is a difference of 1 rupee, which is causing the status to be a data mismatch. For all such transactions, the link is provided here. The user can have and compare both the invoices, and if he wishes, he can rectify the same in the purchase register, re-upload the file and reinitiate the reconciliation process. To simplify the entire process, we also provide a download of the reports from the application itself. If the user chooses to download all the records, it will download the set of records which are either in validated status, reconciled, or exceptions. So this is a 100% download of transactions if this option is accessed. If the user wants to download only the data mismatch records, which is part of his internal purchase register, he can choose to do the same. So the second option will download only the transactions which are stamped as data mismatch from his internal purchase register. If the user selects to download the mismatch records coming from GSTN, he can download this report which will have the invoices only from GSTR2A. Once both the reports, the second and the third reports, are downloaded by the user, he can compare the transactions between his internal purchase register and the 2A, that where the data mismatch is, and if he wishes, he can rectify the same. On these transactions as well, the user needs to initiate some user action. So what is it that the user can do? The same thing. If he choose to accept the data mismatch transaction, it means that he gives a sign off to the data provided by the vendor, and he doesn't want to report his own purchase invoice. So when the GSTR2 is built, the data from the GSTR2A gets picked up and not from his internal purchase register. If the user selects reject, it means that he do not consider GSTR2A invoice for GSTR2, but he still wants to go ahead and report the numbers which are part of his internal purchase register. If he chooses to keep the transaction on hold, it will be included for the next month and the user can act upon it in the next return period. But for this GSTR2, this return period's GSTR2, this transaction will not be included. So friends, in this video, we had a look at what are the different exceptions that the system identifies as a part of reconciliation process, how these reports can be downloaded and acted upon, and how the user action needs to be initiated on each of the exceptions as part of reconciliation process. In our next video, we will have a look at the downloaded reports and what is it that the user can do with those reports and re-upload them back into the application. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you.